Welcome back, Devils fans. It is your host, Ace, here on Running with the Devils, where we are talking New Jersey Devils hockey all year long. Please hit that subscribe button, smash the like, share with a friend. Thank you very much. When I was a kid, I wanted to work in hockey in some fashion, some way, somehow. I didn't pursue it. I didn't really know how to. And while it's too late for me to do that, now I get to do some cool stuff periodically with this channel as a hobby. I had the chance to sit down with one of my favorites, Jamie Langenbrunner. As many of you know, the 2003 is my favorite Devils team of all time. I was fortunate enough to go to every single home playoff game during that run, except for Game 1 against Boston. I saw them win the Cup in Game 7. Here is a vintage throwback shot of a young Ace and a young Jamie Langenbrunner after that Game 7 of the 2003 Stanley Cup Finals. This is easily the highlight of my time with this channel thus far. Hockey guys are hand down the best athletes. I cannot thank Jamie enough for this. He was super gracious with his time. He was kind enough to sign some photos for you guys. So I'll be doing giveaways for these. Comment on the video with your favorite Jamie Langenbrunner moment from throughout his career or your favorite part of this interview. Me and some of my esteemed colleagues will weed through there and pick some winners, and we'll also announce some other ways to win as well. Without further delay, here is my conversation with Jamie Langenbrunner.
My guest today has played over 1,100 NHL games, racking up 663 career points. He recorded 87 points in 146 playoff games, a two-time Stanley Cup champion with the 1999 Dallas Stars and the 2003 New Jersey Devils. He's represented Team USA in the World Juniors, the World Cup, and the Olympics.
Captaining the 2010 team.
A 2023 inductee into the USA Hockey Hall of Fame, and currently the assistant general manager of the Boston Bruins. Welcome to Running with the Devils, Jamie Langenbrunner.
Thanks, good to be here.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you doing this. Really cool, thrill for me. Grew up watching you guys, the 2003 team, my favorite team of all time. So I just want to start early on in your career. You grew up in Minnesota,
Yep.
Hockey hotbed. How old were you when you started playing?
I was probably 4 or 5 when it started. You know, growing up in Minnesota, it's kind of rite of passage. You go out there and you try it. I think every kid does it at least. You know, my parents were fantastic at introducing me to every activity and sport and let me pick what felt good to me. And you know, hockey was definitely my love and my passion.
And then how old were you roughly when you realized that you're very good at this, better than, if not every kid, almost every other kid?
Probably not until my junior year in high school when I had a really good season. Stuff just kind of started snowballing there. I was always a good player growing up, but never the best. But that year things started to really click. I'm guessing I had a little bit of a growth spurt there. I was a small kid for a long time, and things just started to work out from there.
So that's when the NHL dream seemed attainable. You were Minnesota State Player of the Year.
Yep.
And that's when it was like, all right, this is going to be.
Yeah, that was the year. That season finished, and my my high school coach said, "You're gonna have a busy spring. You're gonna get drafted, and you're gonna have a lot of teams want to interview you now and stuff." And until that point, I didn't know it was my draft year. I didn't, it was a different time then, where these kids know 12 years in advance or whatever when they start playing hockey. But so that kind of just started to snowball it, and I always played football and football season, hockey and hockey season, baseball and baseball season, and I did that all the way through, pretty much through high school. And so, hockey was, like I said, my first love, but I love playing a bunch of other sports, and feel fortunate I was able to do that growing up.
So then you leave high school early, you go dominate in the juniors in Peterborough.
Yep.
And then on April 9th, 1995, you get called up for your first NHL game for the Stars at St. Louis. What do you remember most about your first NHL game?
Well, we had just lost out in Peterborough of the playoffs. We lost to a powerhouse Detroit team. At the end of junior seasons, you may hang out with your buddies a little bit, maybe a couple of parties and stuff. And this was kind of pre-cell phones being around all the time. So
good old days. The
good old days. My billet parents had a tough time tracking me down to find out where I was, because Bob Gainey was trying to get a hold of me, and they finally did at my buddy's house. And I remember being in a scramble because I had to get to the Toronto airport to fly to St. Louis, and we had dyed our hair and stuff, so I had to go find a barber to cut out all my streaks in my hair, and couldn't quite get it all out. But it was a whirlwind, and then flying into St. Louis, meeting the team there, surreal. For me, Neil Broughton was on that team, and as a Minnesota kid growing up, he's Neil Broughton. He was the North Stars. He was Minnesota hockey. So got the opportunity to play with him that game. And, obviously a lot of other guys. Brett Hull was on the other side, who I had known a little bit because he lived by me. And he was awesome. Welcome to the league, kid, and all that. So it was a surreal experience, and one that you don't forget.
That's amazing. So then the next season, 95-96, you played 12 games with the Stars, and then you became a full-time regular in 96-97. You guys seem to be like the turnaround point for the Stars. You guys win a division, lost in the first round to Edmonton. What was the biggest adjustment for you as a young guy coming into the league, and now you're a full-time NHL player?
Getting that consistency in my game. You'd have, as a young player, you have a good night, you have a bad night. It was eliminating the bad nights to make them acceptable, I guess, was the biggest thing. And the grind of the season. 82 games is a long year, and coming from high school hockey where we played 28 games to then junior where we were in the 60s, and now you're jumping another thing, and now you're playing against men. So that part was the biggest adjustment, and it took me a while to learn to be able to play the full season, to get to it. And that's part of what you do in the off season for training and all that, to give yourself the best chance.
So there was a lot of veterans on that group.
Yeah.
Who were the guys that you would say kind of took you under their wing and mentored you at that young stage of your career?
Well, first it's Joe Nieuwendyk, who happened to put me as his roommate. Back then you had roommates, not like now where they get their own room right away, but I had a roommate with Newy. We roomed together our entire time in Dallas. Fantastic mentor, a guy that had been the captain of Calgary, won cup, had been through it. Great guy, one of my best friends still to this day. So he'd be the first, but you said it. I mean, that team was loaded with previous captains. Mike Keane, Brian Skrudland, Darian Hatcher, Mike Madonna, like Craig Ludwig. We had so many guys that were Guy Carbonneau. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's crazy how many captains and guys that had over 1,000 games, and it was an old, very proven team, and a great one to come in with because they taught me what it was all about for winning. I mean, do what you want off the ice, do this. When you come to the game, be ready to play. And we were a close group, and we had a lot of success. We had some heartbreak too, like you said, that first year, getting knocked out in the first round. But it was a steady climb for that organization to a team that was a pretty good team for a good stretch.
And then the next season it gets a little better. Win the division again. You guys go a little further, lose to a juggernaut. I mean, absolutely lethal Red Wings team in the conference finals.
Yep.
And then 98-99, win the division again, get to the conference finals and beat another loaded team, Colorado in 7. Like those late 90s West Coast teams.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you think those teams are doing today's game? All those crazy Red Wings, Avs, Stars teams, like.
Well, obviously a different era with no salary cap and stuff, so you had some loaded teams. The team that kind of gets forgotten in this is St. Louis. St. Louis was really good during this stretch, but we're caught behind, Dallas, Detroit, and Colorado as kind of the fourth fiddle, but they were a really, really good team as well. So it was a gauntlet, and it was interesting. We seemed to be able to handle Colorado. We could not touch Detroit. They owned us, and those guys would have their wars. So, we got fortunate maybe that they were able to beat Detroit in both those years. So who knows?
So then you guys get to the finals. You're going up against the Dominik Hasek-led Sabres. Game 6. Brett Hull gets that winner in triple overtime.
Yep.
Can you even begin to describe, obviously winning the cup, right, for the first time, but in that fashion, like what is, how can you even begin to describe that kind of moment?
Well, it's interesting. Like, I'd forgot a lot of what had happened. The game, you're playing it, you're just into it. And this summer, I watched Game 6 for the first time in my life. With my youngest son, because he was like, I want to see one of your old games and just see what it was like. So I watched it with him, and so some of the memories are there probably just from watching that. But you know, the on ice, the grueling of a triple overtime game at that time of the year after what you've been through, you know, watching that, you can see, you know, guys are just being safe, playing not to lose a little bit. And obviously a guy like Brett that had the ability to score huge goals, you know, if you go, and this is what I learned watching, he barely played in that game. He had a terrible knee and was playing very spotting shifts, and you know, for him to get that goal and you know, help bring home the Stanley Cup to Dallas at that time was pretty exciting.
You think he still has that rocket shot today?
I don't know. He's a he's a little bit different shape now.
So third full season, you guys win the cup. You obviously had a monster playoff, 10 goals, 7 assists, 17 points, third on the team, only behind Mike Madonna with 23 and Joe Nieuwendyk with 21. I would say pretty good stretch for you personally.
Yeah, it was great. Joe and I had some really good chemistry playing together, and you know, that playoffs, he was coming off a real major injury the year before. He was really focused on pushing the envelope, and he really helped me through it. You know, the ups and downs of it. You know, a little in between home games, we'd go sneak in 9 holes of golf to get the mind off of the pressure, and you know, just kind of relax for a little bit. So some of those things that he taught me, that you know, you can't grind it 24/7 for a 2-month stretch, or you're going to burn yourself out. You know, give yourself those mental breaks and to help prepare going forward.
So now the next season, you guys pick up right where you left off, 99-2000, win the division, get to the conference finals again, beat Colorado in 7 again, and you face off against the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah.
What was the scouting report for you guys going into that series against that Devils team?
Well, that was a year where Philly was probably thought of as the more top-level team. I would say we probably thought we got a little bit of a break when New Jersey beat it to a degree, but we knew how good they were. I knew, you know, Marty, Scotty, Patty, Jason Arnott, you know, they had a really good team. And, you know, it was one of those series where it was tight. You know, they obviously won in was it double or triple overtime in Game 6, right? So I think the game we lost here that we kind of spit was one that really hurt us in that series. But that's the National Hockey League. You're playing against top level players, and top level players show up in big situations.
Yeah, you guys split New Jersey. The Devils won 7-3 the first game, a very uncharacteristic outing for Eddie Belfour.
Yep.
Luckily for the Devils, Stars won Game 2 very close, late Brett Hull goal. And then Devils squeak out 3 and 4 to take the 3-1 lead. And then you head to New Jersey for Game 5. I begged my parents, I begged my father, didn't have a lot of money at the time. This was, I think, preliminary internet or maybe even newspaper ads, scouring. I found 3 tickets for me. My father and my brother begged. He somehow got the money, got the tickets. I'm like, we're gonna see the cup tonight. And it wasn't meant to be. A goaltending duel for the ages. I honestly believe it's probably the greatest overall hockey game I've ever seen. Marty had 41 saves and Belfour had 48. And then Mike Modano gets the tip in triple overtime. And it was like 1:15 in the morning. You know, series going back to Dallas. What do you remember the most about that game? Another marathon.
Yeah, it's the playoffs, right? You have these games that feel like they're never going to end. The battle, but when you're in them, you're just playing, right? Like it's hockey, and you find another level of energy, and you just keep going. And you know, unfortunately for me, I think that game I would have been out. I had a knee injury that playoff series, so I only played, I can't remember which games I played in, but you know, it was tough. You know, we'd been through it. We'd been to the conference finals 2 years before that. We'd won the last year. You know, we'd played a lot of hockey in it. We were an older team. I'm definitely not making any excuses for us in that, because New Jersey outplayed us in the big moments, and you know, games are close though. So
Game 6, go back to Dallas, another goaltending battle, 1-1, go to OT, nothing, and then double overtime. Arnott gets that nice pass from Patty.
Yep.
Series over, Devils win the cup. You guys come so close to back-to-back. What do you remember about kind of the demeanor of the team after that game?
There was some sadness because our team was getting old at that point. We knew some guys were going to be moving on. It had been together for really 5 strong years there in my mind that I was there, that we had won the division every year. We were, one of the top teams. We thought we were still going to be good the following year, and we battled. But you could tell it was starting to be a little bit of a changeover of a group that had become very tight.
So in the following season, 2000, 2001, the Devils, now in the same role as the Stars the year before, trying to go back-to-back. They get all the way to the finals, take a 3-2 series lead against the Avs. Game 6 in New Jersey, Jamie, my father again, I said, Dad, we didn't see it last year. This year it's going to happen. He somehow gets the tickets again. And what happens in Game 6? Devils drop another one. 2nd year in a row.
Yep.
I am deprived of seeing the Stanley Cup. And to make it worse, the Devils go on the road, blow Game 7. The Stars lose in the 2nd round to the Blues. And now we head into the 01-02 season. And this is how you ended up here today.
Yep.
This is where it all starts. Devils and Stars both struggling. Teams are trying to shake it up. Larry gets fired. The Devils hire Kevin Constantine, which was shocking to Devils fans. Larry was by most reports, beloved by the players. The fans loved him. Instrumental in winning the Cup in 2000. And then at the deadline, March 19th, 2002, one of the most shocking trades, I think, for the fan base in general, you and Joe Nieuwendyk get traded for Arnott McKay and a 1st-round pick. And now, the A-line, Jason Arnott, he scored the goal against your Stars. He's gone. McKay was a 2-time Cup winner at the Devils. He was a member of the crash line on the 95 Cup team. So it was whoa, this guy won the Cup. He was the big hulking center of the A-line. And we're Jamie Langenbrunner and Nieuwendyk are good, but it's these are our guys,
Right.
And it was totally shocking. Where were you and how did you find out about that trade?
I was at the rink in Dallas. We had a meeting which was scheduled for post-trade deadline, and by my watch count, the deadline had passed, and I was playing some bubble hockey with somebody I can't remember in the little lounge area, and maybe the trainer said, "Hey, Hitch wasn't even the coach then. Somebody wants to see you in the back room," and then I hear him say something to Joe, and the 2 of us are walking. I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was some sort of a meeting and Doug Armstrong was in there and said, I've traded you to New Jersey, and a little bit of shock, to be honest with you. My wife was pregnant, his wife was pregnant. He had just bought a new house, kind of surprised. We'd been what we thought was similar to, I'm sure, Jason and Randy felt were a big part of a good team, and obviously our year had not gone exactly how we wanted, but we still thought we had plenty of game left, or Joe thought he had plenty of game left, and I thought I was just finding mine to help our respective organizations continue or help Dallas keep moving forward. And then when you get moved, it's disappointing at first, I'll be completely honest, right? You feel like you failed a little bit. It was tough, but you figure it out and you call the wife and say, how do you like the East Coast? Because we're leaving. So it was a whirlwind, because we were at the airport 2 hours later and trying to go meet the team in Chicago, which didn't happen that night because of a storm. But so I ended up being able to spend one more night at home and then flying the next day. But it was tough.
So being tight with Joe, and he was one of your mentors, how much does being traded with him soften the blow for a situation like that?
Oh, it was massive. It was for my wife as well. She would already have someone she was pretty close with. We had, like I said, they were both pregnant. They gave birth like a day apart, September 14th and 15th. It was just, or a couple days apart, but it was very helpful for me moving forward. He'd been through one before, going Calgary to Dallas in the Jerome McGinley trade, and so he again got to teach me a little bit about it. And when we first got to New Jersey, getting houses in New Jersey can take a while. So, we didn't have a place to stay at. Our house wasn't ready, so we ended up living with them, and it was a madhouse, but it was a life experience for sure.
Believe it or not, 20 years later, it's become even more of a pain in the ass.
Imagine.
For all of it. So now, what was your impression of the Devils organization and Lou at the time of that trade?
I had known Lou a little bit from the '98 Olympics. I had come over for that Olympics as a fill-in for an injury as a replacement guy, so he had brought me on, so I had spent some time with him there. My impression of New Jersey would have been probably the Turnpike. It was was the impression before I knew. So I honestly didn't know a whole lot. Playing in the Western Conference, you didn't come out here that often. Hadn't spent a ton of time. So knew they were good. Obviously, they had just beaten us. I'd been to another one. I knew Jay Pandolfo and Scott Gomez a little bit from USA Hockey stuff. But other than that, I didn't know a whole lot of guys. But just some of their players as being really talented players.
And then what do you remember the first time you get in the locker room of the New Jersey Devils now as the new guy?
Yeah, it was crazy because our last game with Dallas was in Chicago and our first game with New Jersey was in Chicago. So walking into the exact same locker room for back-to-back games with completely different teams was different. You're trying to put names with faces, trying to get a feel of your system, still dealing with a little bit of the shock of, oh my God, I'm living in a new place, but also trying to get yourself up to play a tough game, and at a time when you're chasing playoffs and trying to get yourself into the best position possible going into the spring.
And so now, does someone give you the encyclopedia thick book of Lou rules, or do you kind of learn these as they come about?
There's a slow roll of those. You learn them as you go. I remember learning the tie one stays on till you're in your car coming back from a game from Philly. We're at the West Orange practice rink. We're parked in that little parking area. The bus pulls up, and I have my tie off on the bus. There's no way I'm wearing a tie on the bus, right? I'm walking off, and Lou stops me, makes me go back, put my tie on to walk off the bus, walk 10 more feet, take my tie off, and drive. So that was an eye opener from Dallas, where it was a little different in that regard. The taping of your shins I learned on the first practice because I used to cross.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, the tape can't cross the color scheme, so red tape on red, white on white, black on black. Well, I used to wrap and pull across, so I had to learn to tape my shin pads differently. Like there was a lot that had to change in my routine.
Over the years, I'm going to collect these from all the guys. We're going to put together the comprehensive rule book from over the years. So then you guys make it to the playoffs. First round, exit in 6 to Carolina. Kevin Weeks comes in and just puts on the performance of his lifetime. What was the sentiment in the locker room at that point of the Devils as a group where, the prior year they lost in 7, and then the year before that they won the Cup?
Yep.
2 long runs, and now out in the first round. Kind of what was the vibe?
Yeah, it was disappointment. As a guy coming over in a trade, you wanted to help put it over the hump a little, or not over the hump. You wanted to help build that, and I think both Joe and I put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do that along with everybody else. But it's pro hockey, and I think similar to what happened in Dallas is, you go on those long runs, and it's hard to maintain that as a group. Maintain your energy. You've lost months of training to rebuild. You're starting to run a little bit, and in today's or in the game, then there was a lot of good teams, and Carolina was a good team. Goalies can play well. Weeksy had a heck of a series, and some guys had some big series. They had some guys score goals that normally don't, and that's how you win playoff series.
And now that summer hits, free agency, more change.
Yeah.
Bobby Holik. I've forgiven him in time, but at the time he signs with the Rangers, massive contract. Holik is gone. And And then Lou's like, let's shake it up some more. Another bombshell to the fan base. 5 days later, on July 6th, Peter Sikora to Anaheim for Jeffries and Oleg Tverdovsky.
Yeah.
What was the thought in the locker room now at that point that this is kind of, to at least the fans, I think it was just like Lou's not fully blowing it up, but now, 2/3 of the A-line is gone. Holik was gone. All these guys that have been mainstays of the franchise are now on the way out, and he's kind of tinkering, bringing in all these new guys. Like, what was everyone's kind of thought process at that point?
Well, for me, I guess I didn't, the short stint I was there before, I wouldn't have had the same ties as some guys into the big group. But I think for me, looking at it was trying to reload in a way to go at it again. Lou's not gonna sit back and just let something just kind of slide away. We all know that, and that he was what he thought was best to rebuild that team. And obviously you have the mainstays of Scotty and Marty, kind of the backbone of the team, and then kind of tinkered around it. And obviously Patty, I should have left him or put him in that conversation as well, for sure. So we liked our team. Obviously the coach change happened as well. The beginning of the coaching changes for me while I was with Lou, but bringing in Burnsy, a little different mindset than Kevin, and it was I think notice sent that wasn't good enough, that we lost. I'm going to do what I can to reload this team, and now it's on you guys to be better than we were at the end.
So the 2002-2003 season will forever be no matter what happens till the day I croak, will forever be my favorite Devils season of all time. I was a senior in high school. I probably once a month would wake up in the morning and tell my mom, I'd be like, I think I've come down with the South Mountain flu. And she knew that meant to call the school, and I'm not getting into trouble. I'm just going to go watch the boys practice, which, by the way, is some of my best childhood memories. It's unfortunate that with time and everything that I guess probably most teams don't do that. And I'm kind of shocked looking back that Lou even allowed that. On a random Tuesday, just walking, there'd be like 3 other people there, and I'm watching you guys skate around South Mountain. Great times. Pat Burns, like you said, comes in. What is your first impression of him, and what is his message during camp to this team that I guess now Lou has kind of heightened the expectations to, we need to get back to being a winning franchise?
Well, my first impression with him was in training camp. My wife had stayed in Dallas to give birth to our baby because her hospital, her doctor's all there, and we didn't have a house here yet. So I had to go tell Pat that I was going to be missing. I was flying back for the birth, and I went up to him and tell him, and he looks at me and goes, "Who are you?" And for me, that was putting me on notice that I was my 6th or 7th year in the league. I thought I was probably comfortable, maybe a little bit, but he just let me know. And then he came back a few minutes later. So I was joking, but that was the kind of okay, here we go. So I loved Pat Burns. He was direct. He was matter of fact about everything, and all he wanted you to do was play hard. And when a coach kind of gives you that rein to, I'm going to correct your mistakes, but I just want you to show up, for me, that's easy to play.
So over the years, a lot of the guys have told stories kind of every range of the spectrum with Burns. So you had a good relationship with him.
I did. I know some of them that didn't. I know some of them that had a really hard time, but I like a direct coach. I like one that's no nonsense. I had some success with him as a coach. I think he trusted me. And at the end of the day, how can you not like a coach that helps you win a championship? And he did that. Like he was a big part of that.
So now mid-season, January 17th, your good buddy Joe Newendike at Carolina gets his 500th goal. You have a nice view of it as his line mate, and then you get the game-winning goal later on. Devils win 2-1, 26-12-3 at that point. Big win on the road. Joe gets his 500th. Is there like a nice celebration you guys do for that after the game?
Yep.
You guys buy him something nice?
Yep, we do. I got him a gift myself. I got him a new set of irons, some clubs, but we all every time there's something, a milestone, we celebrate it with each other, with our teammates. We love when our teammates are able to accomplish something. It's a hard league to get to. It's a hard league to have success in, and anytime somebody can have some success, you're definitely going to celebrate it.
I was hoping you could have got that at home. I remember getting the $20 nosebleeds for the few games. I think he had a few cracks at home. Yeah. I was like, I want to see history. Wasn't in the cards, but glad to see him, obviously get it in Carolina. And then Lou gets back to work. March 10th, does another, I would say this is an under the radar sneaky one. He brings in your former Dallas Stars teammate, Grant Marshall.
Yeah.
We now go into the playoffs. Before we skipped ahead here, you finished second on the team with 55 points that year, tied with Gomer. You did it in 78 games. He did it in 80. So I think they list you as more points per game. Second to only Patty with 57. That was your best career statistically at that point. Devils 108 points, win the division. And this was a shocking when I was looking at all researching and prepping for this. Not a single 30-goal scorer on that club. And I was stunned. What do you think that says about that 2003 Devils team?
All team. I think, 55 points is second leading scorer. That's sad, but I think we had a team that didn't worry about those things. Guys up and down rolls. We're moving lines around. We had guys that sacrificed things. We wanted to play good defensively. We wanted to win hockey games. We didn't have the most offensively talented team, and we knew that, but we knew we had enough good players and could play the game the right way.
So heading into the playoffs, how are you feeling about your game individually, and does the team feel like they're kind of back to that true cup contending mentality or position?
Yeah. For me in my career, I was very fortunate pretty much from day one that I was on good teams that were either winning divisions or near the thing. I don't remember ever going into a playoff, at least in my mind or heart, believing we couldn't win. Did it always happen? No. So that year, for sure. And once it gets started, then you start to get this feeling of, there's a different feeling when we start to get rolling, things start going your way. But I went into every playoff believing we could win. Whether it happens, no, it doesn't happen every year. Not gonna, but for sure we believed it.
So now I have to go through your personal performance here, because this was, again, I remember your monster playoff when you look at the game logs. So we blow through Boston in the first round in 5. You have both goals in game 1, a 2-1 win. Then you have a game-winning goal and 2 assists in game 2. 2 goals in the game 5 closeout. 7 points in 5 games. Boston is dispatched. Was that for the fans, even after the first 2 games, I remember everyone saying, we're going to probably sweep this team. Did you guys feel that you were just on a different level than them?
It was a good matchup for us. Joel Thornton at the beginning of his career, John Madden was pretty good at shutting down top-end players. We felt we were deeper than them with what we felt 3-4 lines that could chip in. So we felt it was a good matchup for us. But first game's 2-1. It's if that could flip either way. The playoffs are so weird like that. I'll tell you a quick little funny one. I remember when we were practicing for between games 4 and 5, Burnsy getting pissed at us. We shouldn't be here. We should have won this thing, and we should have swept these guys. So there's another Burnsy one where he's pissed because we've got a chance to win in game 5.
Sweep.
Yep.
So then we move on. Tampa Bay, and you just pick right back up. Game-winning goal in game 1 and an assist. The OT winner in game 2. You had an assist in a game 3 loss, but 4 points in 5 games. And through 2 rounds, you now have 4 game-winning goals and 11 points in 10 games. The Devils look like an absolute juggernaut. At this time, does this feel like this is the best hockey of your life?
It felt good. The season was, I think you might have said, it was one of my better seasons to date at that point. So I felt good about my game. I felt comfortable in my role on the team. You know, and when I got traded from Dallas, it was starting to be a little bit of a, what am I going to be as a player? They wanted me a checking line center. It never really hit with me, and I just couldn't get comfortable. Not that I didn't want to, but it just didn't work. And, you know, getting traded and Lou saying, I want you to be you, it kind of freed me up a little bit to play. So yeah, the game felt good. I felt confident. You know, I was fortunate to, you know, I was either playing with Joe and Jeff, or I was playing with Jay and John, depending on matchups and games, and I felt comfortable with both. And, you know, the game just kind of felt good at that time.
Yeah, I was watching some of the highlights the other day, and it's just like both you and Jeff are just all over I still get goosebumps watching it. I went to, again, this is back in the days where you could get tickets. It didn't have to be affluent to attend hockey games. Me and my buddy went to every game of the first 3 rounds. Yep. For about $300 total.
There you go.
I think I paid $300 for one ticket, you know, against the Rangers a couple of years ago, but the good old days. So now you guys breeze through the first 2 rounds, go up against a stacked Ottawa Senators club in the Eastern Conference Finals. They were actually the President's Trophy that year with 113 points. Obviously a different level of competition than the previous 2 rounds. What was Pat Burns' message to the team now going into this Eastern Conference Final matchup against what appeared to be a much better team?
I don't think the message ever changed for us. We believed in ourselves and our game. You know, we had what we considered the best goalie in the league in Marty, and a big game goalie. We had a strong D-core, and we had a good team game. We knew how good they were and how talented they were, but, you know, we felt we were a little more playoff proven. Most of our guys in our team had been through the grind before. Ottawa was just one of those new coming teams of getting into it a little bit. So we felt good about our game, and we knew it was going to be a battle, but we were confident in ourselves.
Ottawa wins the first one. Devils win the next 3, take the big 3-1 lead. Game 5 in Ottawa, can't get it done. Come home for Game 6, and trailing 1-0 going into the third. Joe ties it up late, and then eventually gets injured in that kind of freak thing in overtime. Devils lose 2-1 in overtime. As a fan, I remember thinking, oh my God, you know, Joe went down. The series is now tied, and then you obviously, as a Devils fan, remember, you know, they came back from a miraculous 3-1 deficit to Philly in the conference finals just 3 years ago, and it was like, wow, now we're going to be on the other end of it. You know, who spoke up after that Game 6?
I don't remember anything right after that game of any panic. I remember the conversation being, we played a good game and lost in overtime. You know, we have to play another good game up there. Nothing really changes for us at that moment. You know, you go get yourself preparing again to go back to Ottawa. You know, we had some adventures going to Game 7, which I don't know if you've ever heard some of the stories of the bus and some of that stuff yet, but you know, at that moment in Game 6, and until you just read through that, I had forgot we had blown a 3-1 lead in that series. So, you know, that's part of going through those playoffs where you just kind of take it game by game. You're still alive. You come to play. Your head, you come to play, because you just never know what's going to happen day to day.
What was Joe telling the team about his injury right after the game? Did he have any idea how severe it was going to be, or no?
He kept it pretty quiet. He had told me that it wasn't good because it was a sternum oblique thing that he had gone through once before. So I knew it was highly unlikely that he was going to be able to play, but he was going to try. That's the way Joe is. And but again, I don't remember us panicking about that. We flew up to Ottawa. We did our normal routine to get ready for a game, and we walk out for the bus, and so our bus had broken down, and they had brought this bus from, I think, about 1930 with the wheel caps inside, and it looked like a Slapshot movie, but we just kind of rolled with it, and I think it maybe loosened us up even a little bit of, you know, a lot's gone wrong the last few days or last week with losing some games, but things will turn our way here as well.
Do you think the bus thing was a kind of stroke of gamesmanship from a local bus company in Canada? I never really thought about that till about a year ago or so. I was watching it when someone was telling the story, and I was like, yeah, no one really straight up says like this was kind of shenanigans, but it seems like one of those things where you hear, sometimes teams on the road like, oh, the hot water doesn't work, and you hear all this stuff. So you think it was one of those kind of deals?
It could have been one of those kind of deals. It could have been Lou in his his evil genius kind of thing and figuring it out, right?
That is a plot twist and a half.
Why not? That he goes, this will loosen them all up. It'll break the routine. It'll change it up. So who knows? Nobody knows, and we just go with it.
So Game 7 in Ottawa, Joe tries to power through like the warrior that he was. He takes a few shifts and shuts it down. Devils go down 1-0 early in the first. Show resilience, don't break. You score back-to-back goals in the second. Devils up 2-1. And then Ottawa scores early in the third to tie it at 2. What are guys on the bench saying as it's getting now later and later into that third period in the tie game?
Again, nothing was panic. It was we're playing the game. We're in a tight series. We've got to score a goal. We believed in ourselves that if we stayed with our game, we'd score the winning goal. A little side note on. Before I scored my 2 goals, when Joe got injured, he was laying on the training table in tears because he couldn't play. And he calls me in and goes, "You're going to have a big rest of this game. Nobody's me better than you in these situations." So that gave me this confidence, I think.
Wow.
One of those subtle leadership moments that Joe has of knowing the right thing to say at the right time. And, like I said, had some luck, shot one off a guy's foot in the net, and then another one that got through. So, that was one of those times again where good leadership on teams and knowing what to say at the right time goes a long ways.
That's an amazing little anecdote that I don't think may not have been told before. At least I never caught it. So that's a really good one. 2:14 left. Grant Marshall threads it, and he's admitted that it was actually lucky, but it looked like it was purposeful. Through Wade Redden's legs to freeze it, and Devils take the 3-2 lead. One of the biggest goals in team history, I would say. The last 2 minutes watching this as a fan seemed like an eternity. What does it feel like to you guys being in the game now, knowing what's on the line on the road, Game 7, crazy crowd?
Yeah, it's an unbelievable atmosphere in there, but you're almost in like a little bit of a, I don't want to say zone, but you're in this bubble of yourself where you can hear the crowd, you can hear the noise, but it's distant. Like it's not really affecting you. It's just a part of the atmosphere. I remember, I think there was a shot at the point that I don't know if I blocked it or what, but my stick broke on there, and I think I would have had a breakaway on it, but I knew my stick was broken, so I dropped it, and everyone's like, and I kicked it down, and like those are some of the little stuff that happens, but it's bringing back a lot of great memories, to be honest with you, because I don't think you sit at home and think about them that often.
That's amazing. Like I said, my favorite run of all time.
Yeah.
I talk to some of the old timers. A lot of the kids are like, ask questions, and hockey even now compared to then, it's way more. More high schools have teams. More kids are growing up Devils fans. So it's awesome to see. When I was in elementary school, I'm still to this day lifelong friends. There's like 3 or 4 other kids in the whole school that liked hockey,
right?
And 2 of them are Ranger fans. And so over time, it's great to see the sport in New Jersey become more popular.
Yeah.
So where would you rank that Ottawa team overall in terms of all the great playoff teams? I would argue that you've probably played throughout your career some of the best teams in NHL history, right? Over your whole career span. Where would you put that Ottawa team?
Well, I think it's always hard for an organization that didn't get over the hump to put them in the top tier. But as far as a collection of talent and players that went on to great careers and other spots, it was pretty high end. They had built a really good team. Obviously, they got to another final 3 years later or so at 06. So that was the cusp of them beginning and ranking. I don't know. It's hard to beat some of those Colorado and Detroit teams that we played and some of that, but they were a high end team.
So now Devils advance. We're going to the Cup Finals against the Ducks. The Jaguar, ESPN Swan story. heading into the series, when and how did you guys find out that we were going to be going into this battle without Joe?
Pretty much right away. We knew he was going to be doing everything he could to try to get back at some point, but we knew it was, you can tell when someone's walking the way they are and can't move. I mean, it's one of those injuries where you just can't turn, and as a hockey player, if you can't turn, you're pretty well done. So,
yeah.
It was disappointing. He was obviously a big-time player for us, a guy that had been through it a number of times, had already won a Conn Smythe, and was one of our big leaders. But the thing with Joe is he was around. He was there pumping up the guys. He was part of the group. He was giving speeches. He had a speech before Game 7 of that one, so that was memorable for me. And so it's not something that as a team you ever get too wrapped up in, who's out, because you got a lot of good players, and it's disappointing, but you move on.
So we'll get to the legend of Rupper in a minute as a result of the injury. But Devils win games 1 and 2 at home, 3-0 shutouts. Again, fans, we might sweep these guys. The real test was Ottawa. That was the real team to beat. Devils go up 2-0, electric at the old arena. Do you think that the team kind of thought at any point that this was going to be a walk in the park, or maybe got a little complacent after the first 2 games?
Complacent? No. We got a little bit sloppy in our game. I think we took a few. I know myself, I took a couple penalties in one of the games that cost us. Thinking back on it, Marty had a tough play on a dump in that found its way to the net. They scored I believe it was an OT winner off a face-off. Things that our team was throughout the year really strong at eliminating those things. They creeped into our game a little bit. So maybe a little bit. You're going east to west, game times, maybe we overthought it a little bit. I remember we got up at like 6 in the morning to try to stay on Eastern time zone. I don't know if we...
Are you guys locked in the Lou jail, the hotel at this point?
Oh, of course we are. That's a given. That's a given. But, so there was some stuff that maybe we played into ourselves, but we were also playing a really good hockey team. They had some good players. They'd gone through the West. They had a goalie that was playing extremely well, and they were going home fighting just like we were. Yeah.
So you mentioned the fluke goal, Game 3. Marty kind of fumbles a stick. The puck banks in. One of the craziest ways to lose a game.
Yep.
And then Game 4 ended with Steve Thomas pretty much immediately, but Jim McKenzie came out of the lineup, and Mike Rupp comes in for Game 4. What were your initial thoughts on Mike Rupp?
Well, this is going to sound brutal, but at the time, he wasn't around very often. That's the way Lou runs things, is you have a pretty tight playoff group, and then you have the Black Ace group, and Rupper was more a part of the Black Ace group, so we didn't even see him. So it was like, where is he coming from? Was he in home? What was he doing? So it was a little bit of a shock. Jimmy Mack was another one of our vocal leaders in our group, and a guy that had given it his all year. So it was hard for that. But like I said before, the team comes first, and Jimmy was awesome, and Rupper came in and played well, which was great. He had a lot of energy. He wasn't beat up like some of us, and he looked like a player.
So now the series is tied up 2-2. Again, fluke goal. Steve Thomas kind of right away in the beginning of the overtime. What is the mindset now at this point? It's like first 2 games seemed so dominant. It seemed like maybe you're not going to roll the easy victory, but it seemed like you had the upper hand, and now kind of blink of an eye type situation. Going back to New Jersey, tied at 2-2. What was kind of the mindset of the group then?
Take care of home ice. We can't fix what happened. Sure, we'd have liked to have gone there. When you go on the road in the playoffs, I think you're always looking for the split at worst. We obviously didn't do that. So take care of home again. We had been good on home ice in the playoffs. We felt comfortable there. take care of that and then go win Game 6. But take care of home ice was our mindset.
What do you think about that year? Why, especially in this series, why was home ice? I don't know that I could recall any other series where the home team won every single game. What do you think it was about that team or that that season, for whatever reason, why we were so good at home at that in that final?
Well, I mean, a few things come into it. I believe in general. You can ask a goalie this, but goalies feel more comfortable in their own building. The sidelines are better. They're dialed in. You have your home crowd that creates energy for you. Your home crowd that makes it hard on officials. I think most times home teams get a little bit of the benefit of the calls. That's just human nature, and we all know that. And you're in your routine. It's the norm. So I think it's something that we just always. I think we had a pretty solid year there all year there. So it was just one that kept rolling.
So Game 5 back in New Jersey, big Devils win 6-3. You scored 2 goals in the third period to kind of seal it up. As a player, do finals goals feel any different than like a regular playoff goal? Does it feel any extra, or I don't know how to describe it per se, but does it have that extra oomph to it, like when you see the puck going in the finals?
Well, it probably did for me because I don't think I'd scored in a little while there, and I didn't having a good playoff, so I was probably getting a little frustrated to want to contribute again, especially after, when you win and don't score, it's all right. When you lose and don't score, then it's tough on you. So I think, we've all played out on the street and scored the game winner in Game 7 to win the Cup. So scoring in the finals definitely has some meaning to it.
Game 6, back to Anaheim, chance to close it out. I'm sure the message is we need to end the series now. We don't want a Game 7. Didn't pan out that way. Devils down 3-1 mid-game, and Scott Stevens lands one of the biggest hits in NHL history, drilling Paul Kariya.
Yeah.
Did you see it as it happened? Did you see a replay? What were your kind of thoughts and reactions in the moments right after that hit?
Wow. Paul isn't the easiest guy to catch. Like, he's a smart player. He knows how to slide away from those. So, for Scotty to catch him like that was rare. You knew there was going to be a response from them. He's one of their best players. He's one of the best players in the league. Seeing the way he went down, I didn't believe he was coming back. You get hit like that. Very rare you can come back from that one. But, I think at that time in the league, everyone knew Scotty Stevens' capability of that. I can tell you, I did from practice. You do not to come across the middle with your head down. You're going to be in trouble. So, it was part of the game at that time, and they've changed the rules a little bit, but at that time it was definitely part of the game.
Yeah, definitely one of the biggest hits in NHL history. I didn't think he was coming back anytime in the series.
Yeah.
He comes back later in the period, I guess, like you said, different time, concussion protocol and whatever else. I don't know what he had to do to get back out there. He did. He scores a pretty nice goal, gives the Ducks the 4-1 lead, puts it away, and now we're headed to Game 7.
Yep.
The team stayed in California that night.
Yep.
I think Gomer, someone told the story.
Yep.
What was the bus ride like to the hotel that night?
Disappointment, because as much as you're not getting ahead of yourself, you can't help but think this could be a night we could be celebrating a Cup. So there's disappointment in that. Yet I don't remember us getting stuck on it. We were flying out the next morning. We're gonna have a travel day, and then we're gonna have one more shot at it. And I think we turned the page relatively quickly. You have your team meal, and it was obviously quieter than most at that point. But it quickly turned to, all right, now we know this is our last 2 days as a team, enjoying those moments together, getting ourselves ready to go, and flying back to Jersey to win it at home.
And was it kind of a somber mood on the plane the next day? Or by then,
back to routine. We played cards. It's a long time on the plane.
You were in the card group?
I was part of the card group.
Who else was in there?
Well, we had 2 different ones.
Low stakes, high stakes?
No, just
2 different factions.
There's only so many spots you can have. So, we had 2 different games going. I was always a card player because I I get bored sitting on there too long. Starting off in the West when you had a lot more travel, it was definitely something I got used to.
Do the young guys play cards, or are they playing Xbox? What are the kids now these days doing?
Well, on our team in Boston now, there's definitely a card game, but there are more just watching. They probably watching their shifts and stuff now because they get them right after the game, and I don't know. I never wanted to watch my shifts again. I already played the game.
So now Game 7 back in New Jersey. How and when did the team find out that Ken Daneyko was going to suit up for Game 7?
I don't really recall when the team found out. I knew there's lineup changes and whatnot. Obviously, Dano is Dano. Like he's a guy that you know is going to give you everything he's got, and he's going to be an emotional leader. And he came into that locker room, and when Dano would sit there, he had stuff going on. His legs were moving, he was yapping all the time, and so he was fired up. And I think that really, when you have guys like that, I don't think we knew for sure he was done at that point, but we had a pretty good idea this was going to be his last game. I'm not saying you're giving a little extra. You're playing for the Stanley Cup. We were giving all we had regardless, but
the motivation was certainly there.
The motivation was there in spades all over the place, and I think that insert in the lineup did wonders. He's a guy. He's a warrior that's been through it, and you want guys like that when in those final games.
So now this is pretty much the full circle moment. Mike Rupp, the legend is born. Scoreless first period. Rupp gets one early in the second, and then Friesen gets one mid-second, assisted by Rupp.
Yeah.
2-0 going into third. The building could feel it. At this point, the Devils, when they had a 2-goal lead in this era, especially in a high-stakes game like this, we weren't going to lose.
Yep.
So the whole third period at Continental Airlines Arena was basically a party. Win the cup. We win the cup. What are you thinking in those final moments? You're now in another playoff run. You had a monster personal playoff, and now your second cup with your second franchise in only your second year here.
Yeah, first full year here. I was fortunate. My shifts happened to be, so I was on the ice at the end and was able to jump into Scotty's arms, and I think I had the puck in my stick behind the net actually, but I think I left it. I should have grabbed it because I think Dan Morelli grabbed the puck, but I remember that celebration more than the first one. Probably because I've been through it. I knew what to expect, knew the sequence of events that were going to happen. So I was really able to take it all in. It was amazing. I had family, tons of family there. Winning it at home. The one I won in Dallas, we won on the road in Buffalo. So just being there with the crowd and the noise and the cheering, like completely different feeling. Not that winning on the road is a bad thing, but it is a different feeling. So just soaking that all in. And being on the ice in those situations, watching, there's a lot of guys that have been through it, but watching guys that hadn't won, Jim McKenzie, who had gotten scratched, winning it for the first time. Turner Stevenson winning it for the first time. Jeff Friesen, who was playing against his old team, and can't imagine losing to your old team in the Cup final, after being traded, winning it. Just the joy in all those guys, and again for the guys that have done it again, but the new guys is always awesome.
And aside from the specific elements you just talked about, how is winning the second cup different than the first?
Well, like I said, the sequence of events, I think you're able to really soak it in a little bit more because you're just not caught up into everything. You're able to sit back. I remember going back in the locker room when at the Meadowlands there, we used to have this little small lounge in the back, and I was sitting in the lounge on the couch with my son, who was maybe 1 at the time. No, 3. He was 3. and he's sitting next to me, and I still have my equipment on except for I took the top part off, and I'm just sitting there relaxing, and he's sitting. My wife has a picture of it. It's just those little moments like that are pretty special. And in true Lou form, we didn't have any booze in the locker room.
I'm getting to that in a second, because I heard you said. So you finished the playoffs, 11 goals, 7 assists, 18 points, tied for the team lead with Scotty Niedermayer. I think he's a pretty good guy to share the points lead with on a run.
Yeah.
Now, this is your second cup, again, second monster individual performance. What was it about the playoffs that got you to just raise your game to a different level?
People have asked me that before. I'm not sure there's a raising of a level at the playoffs. I think what I was able to do, at least in those big years, was stay in the moment, not get too wrapped up. Because the reality is that come playoff team time, you're getting more tired, you're more beat up, the game is... It's better because it's more competitive and there's more intensity, but in some regards it's not better because the guys aren't at the top of their game like they were at the beginning from a health standpoint. So just keeping even keel and not getting too riled up. And that's something I'm usually pretty good at, of just embracing the moment that's there.
So now I need to ask you about what I would consider one of the biggest crimes in hockey history. How did Marty not get the Conn Smythe? I mean,
I don't know.
And just not to take anything away from Jagger, listen, he had a great playoff, but, no cup.
He needed 8 shutouts.
Yeah.
What do you have, 7 shutouts that playoffs?
7 shutouts, 3 in the finals, the goals against, everything was just ridiculous. I think Jagger's goals against may have been like a hair better, the Sabres, one or the other, but either way, you didn't get the cup, sir. How are these, how did he not get it?
Well, I think... I agree. I mean, Marty earned that with the numbers he had, but I also think that speaks to what that team was. Everyone was part of the team. No time that really anyone gets singled out like that, and that's what made it special. Is we didn't have a real big scorer. We didn't have a million all-stars. We were just a good hockey team that came to play and played the right way night in and night out. And do I think he got screwed? Yes, but that's the way it works sometimes.
Maybe Lou set that up too after the school bus.
Right? The bus?
Lou may have set that. He's like, you know what? We don't celebrate the individual. Yeah. So you just mentioned the thing about the no booze. Gomer told the story, I've heard about this, that you guys get in there's no booze, and you and some other guys have to go on a recon mission to find some. Can you tell me about that? Where did you go?
I didn't go on the recon. That would have been Jimmy Mack and Turner and probably Gomer. I don't know if Gomer was a nut, but I was at that point sitting back in the lounge just relaxed, and I was like, this is just typical Lou. Like every other team in the world would have champagne. Obviously, they went and got it down there. It was obviously just an oversight, I'm sure, but we had fun that night.
One of my favorite photos, and I didn't have time. I was trying to find the file. I have millions of computers from that run. There's a great one of you with the hat with the champagne spraying.
Yep.
One of my favorite photos. I have you signed one from me years ago.
I have it in my basement.
It's a great photo. And then I think there's another one that you're in a group. Okay. That's a good one. I think with like Scotty, Joe. I haven't seen it in years, and maybe Grant.
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture in my head. I have all those in a folder. One day I have to frame and get up when I get my real Devils museum. But and then now on top of the booze situation, then Gomer said it got better in typical Lou fashion, that they were the first team to celebrate a cup win that night at the bar without the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, Lou, it was too late at night, right? Those games started at 8, right? 8 to 10. So by the time we got out of their rink, it was too late. Oh, you guys can't have it tonight. So, yeah, it was par for the course. But, we went and celebrated that night, and I think we did have enough days with the cup, at least for my body.
Who do you think were the more kind of under the radar or underrated guys on that 2003 Cup team?
Underrated guys. Jay Pandolfo has never got enough love for what he did for this organization, in my opinion. Like you're talking, I know John Madden won Selkies and did all that, but Pando was his running mate for a lot of years, and he's playing those finals he's one of the toughest humans I've ever seen. His thumb was so badly broken, and I don't even know how he held onto his stick, but he played almost the whole finals with that. Turner Stevenson, a guy that played on the fourth line, tons of energy, provided great, we call it juice in the locker room. Like he's just a fantastic teammate. A guy like Corey Schwab, who never got to touch the ice really. Marty plays every night.
He made a relief appearance in one of those games.
Yeah, but great. But
Marty's back at worst job in the league for 20 years.
Right? But to come to work every day, to have a positive attitude, to stay professional and go, because as a pro hockey player, you're still a competitor and you want to get out there and get your games, things like that. And then, the guys that they get inserted. Obviously, Rupper's got a lot of glory because of the goals and all that, but to stay grinding through as a black ace through a month and a half of skating, thinking there's no way in heck I'm ever getting in. It's awesome to see the professionalism and the way guys will sacrifice that time of year to try to win a cup.
So you mentioned Corey Schwab, so I have to ask, it was when you were in Dallas at the time, I believe it was the 95-96 season. Did you ever see the video where he absolutely beat the snot out of Tommy Soderstrom on the Islanders?
I did not. Corey Schwab did?
Corey Schwab.
Wow.
I'll email you the link.
Okay.
It's one of Marty is on the bench getting a very rare night off at that point, and there's a little skirmish. Billy G's behind the net, and I think it was Pilon. I forget who the Islander guys behind it were, but it's a little skirmish, and Soderstrom just came out with his little butterfly mask, the old school birdcage, and he just gets a little feisty. Corey Schwab, I remember this, one of my favorite non-cup moments as a fan, as a little kid. I was 10, 11. He skates center ice. As soon as he hits center ice, I see him shed his stuff. I'm like, no way, no way. He leaves his mask on. He goes right up to, pops the thing up, and just feeds him. The arena's going crazy. They pan to Marty. Marty's on the bench, smirking. It is, I'm going to say to you, it is one of the funniest things I've ever seen, and I've been meaning to meet. Didn't have the photo for Corey until recently, but I do have it. All right, last one here.
Well, quick side note on Corey Schwab. His son and my son are playing together club hockey in Utah now, at the University of Utah, the small hockey world.
Wow. And then, what son is that?
It's Landon, my middle one.
And then Mason's at?
Harvard.
Yep. Look at you.
Yeah. But small hockey world.
Maybe he'll light up Jay's team in the bean pot.
Ooh, I think that's who they're playing. Yeah, I think that's who they're playing. So. Yeah.
You got to go to that one, right? That's a must.
Oh, I go to the bean pot. That's fun. Yeah.
I went to one game years ago. I had a couple friends that lived there.
Yeah.
Last one, the obligatory. What did you do on your day with the cup?
2003. I brought it home to Minnesota. I did a few surprise visit type things. The last one I had done a lot of planned stuff, and we did some of the pop-in stuff. I popped into the police station and fire department unannounced for those guys. Maybe gave a few of them a heads up so they had some family there. I went to my grandfather's house. He had no idea I was coming with it. He thought I was coming to the party later, and brought it to his house. My grandma had passed away 2 years prior to that. So I brought it there. I brought it to an old coach's house. Surprised him as well. Some of those surprise ones are the best. I remember walking into Subway to grab a sandwich, and we carried it in and sat it on the table, and the people going, what the heck is going on? And then I did a thing in my old high school rink, and then a party at my house. So it's a full day. It's an exhausting day.
I've heard.
Yeah, it's an exhausting day. It wasn't the 03 one, but the 99 one. My wife in the morning, because I had it in the bed next to me, sleeping by the time we went to bed for a couple hours. She wakes up and get that damn thing out of here because it stinks. And we were done. You're tired by the end.
Dude, that is awesome. Jamie, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. You know, my 39-year-old self is ecstatic. My 17-year-old self is doing cartwheels. The guy that was, you know, trying to get some tickets for cheap outside in the parking lot. Yeah, thank you for the memories. It was amazing having you as a Devil. I got halfway through my stack actually here because I analyzed a lot of your interviews, and I'm like, Jamie's kind of short and to the point, and I got you talking a little bit, so I feel like good about myself a little bit. So I was like, yeah, I'll get through all these, no problem. I didn't even get halfway through, but that's all right. I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for the time, and I'll adopt the Bruins as my backup team.
All right, you can have one backup team. It was tough for me at first too, but now I love it. It's been great.
Oh man, thank you so much.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Wow, that was awesome, guys. I had goosebumps intermittently throughout the interview. I hope you guys enjoyed that. This was a complete thrill for me. Again, Jamie, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It was completely awesome. Like I said, guys, put your favorite Jamie moment in the comments or your favorite part of the interview. He signed a bunch of photos for you guys. I'll be doing contests and giveaways to get these out to you guys. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to do a lot more things like this in the future. It takes a lot of time, planning, etc. to do things like this. But I have big plans, big visions for this channel. Stick around. Hopefully great things to come. And I'll be back soon, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Until next time, friends, let's go Devils.